Hello, and welcome to Haydn Behind the Music Stand. I'm your host, Patty Ryan, and with me is Carla Fabris, who is a freelance harpist in the Tucson area. Through Arizona Friends of Chamber Music, she, with her husband Juan, has created Chamberhood, which brings free chamber music concerts to their community in various venues and locations. She also plays for the Healing Art program at the Tucson Medical Center and teaches with Tucson Youth Music Center, which is a nonprofit organization that provides free lessons for low-income families. And we'll be talking about historic art house movie theaters. Welcome, Carla. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Patty. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been too long.
It's been a while. I want to say, I don't even know, since my wedding.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, we've Zoomed here and there since the pandemic, but yeah, it's been a long time since I saw you in person.
Yeah, seriously. No, but that was such a fun wedding. And it was so
nice.
lovely. And I met you and Juan basically at the same time. So you guys are both such close friends to me that seeing you at your wedding and everything, it was just like so lovely. And then seeing all the people that were able to be there too that I hadn't seen in a while. But that was what year was
that? Was 2016, I think.
God, that's too long.
That seems crazy. Glad we had the wedding then.
Seriously, right?
I mean, it was way pre-pandemic.
Well, it's such a beautiful wedding. Anyway, but I guess we actually first met when we were both first-year masters, right? At San Francisco Conservatory, is that right?
Yes. Don't remember exactly meeting you. I feel like you and Cindy just showed up in my life together.
That makes a lot of sense.
As like a unit. And then so did Sarah and Natalie, and then we all became friends.
So maybe you were kind of like the
special time. I don't know that I would say I was the glue, if that's what you're getting at.
Yeah, I was.
I don't know. I just remember meeting Sarah and Natalie at orientation. That I do remember. And then, yeah, I don't know. We sort of formed this group. We were the new master students, and it was such a fun time. I have so many great memories of that.
Well, and also you and Cindy basically became sisters in a way.
Cindy and I started to become friends with Cindy, and we realized that people were confusing us. They were always asking me about things that I didn't know what they were referring to. And so I was like, this is so weird. And they were always assuming that I played the violin. And it took me a while to put it together. And then I was like, oh, Cindy really does look like she could be my sister.
Well, because you guys are of similar heights. Well, I mean, you don't have
similar heights.
The hair color is not quite the same, but
no.
I don't know. Yeah, I guess it's probably just the height thing.
Yeah, what kept coming up was that people kept thinking that I was Cindy or that she was me.
And everyone thought that I was Laura Gaynor, that I was.
Oh, yeah.
So there was just a bunch of doppelgangers running around.
But that one was extra confusing because you were both cellists.
We were both cellists, right? And we're both half Asian, half Caucasian.
And were you in the same studio too?
No, we were not in the same studio.
Okay.
But we were both we did a lot of chamber music.
Right.
Yeah, so it was a little more confusing. One of my funny stories is Cindy and I threw a Thanksgiving feast. It's one of my favorite Thanksgivings that I've ever experienced in my life because it really felt like a whole family situation. We invited all our friends. It was a Friendsgiving, really, but like we invited all these people over. We extended the tables and it was all happening in my bedroom, even though it seems weird, but like my bedroom was the largest room in the entire apartment D. So we had amazing food and mulled wine was delicious. And
I remember the turkey. That was a beautiful bird.
Yeah, that was the first time I made a turkey ever. Yeah.
So beautifully stuffed.
And it came out
with all those vegetables.
Yeah, it really did. It came out really well. There's way more memories, but one of them was, so because the whole feast was happening in my room, you could see everything in my room. I had this shelving unit with just a bunch of toothpaste, spare like Swiffer pads or something, or like my toiletries and
small cans of tuna.
Yeah, I had bought like a ton of canned tuna.
Serves of tuna.
Yeah, flaxseed. Like it's just stuff that I wouldn't keep in the kitchen, but they're my own things. And you look over and you like coined the term for me. You're like, what is this? Your earthquake kit or something? And like it stuck and everyone started laughing at me, but I'm like laughing at myself too because I'm like, yeah, I guess you're right. Like I never put the two and two together, but I mean, it's not really my earthquake kit. It's just
really?
It's
This memory is different for me. Yeah, anyway, there were some things in storage and I really thought, so like the whole time I was in California, you know, I'm an East Coaster. I lived in Europe. I never lived in California before, right? So I moved to San Francisco thinking it was going to be warm, right? Like I had I had all these shorts. Like I thought I was going to be some kind of California girl.
Yeah, that's actually,
I moved there and I felt like such a fraud immediately. And it was just like, oh, wow. And then I saw the earthquake kit and I thought, oh my God, see, Patty's from California and she really has it together and she really knows the kinds of things you need when there's going to be an earthquake. And that so wasn't what I had ever thought about. So it was just a funny thing for me.
But the thing is, like, I kind of mentioned this on Matt's episode that I have this really bad habit of buying in bulk, especially when it's on sale. So like, I guess tuna happened to be in bulk and something that you can just keep on your shelf forever. So when the pandemic came around, I looked in my cupboard and I was set. I didn't have to go to the grocery. I had all the toilet paper I needed, you know, like stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So be smart.
No.
It's a kit.
But I think it's
a pandemic kit too.
Well, I think I'm just prepared for any natural disaster ever.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Since noticing this of myself, and like obviously my friends noticed it of me before I even acknowledged it, I'm trying to stop doing it.
I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think I was trying to make fun of it. I just thought, wow, Patty's really together. She has an earthquake kit.
Well, I'm laughing at myself at least. So.
I'm laughing with you.
Okay. Which is then at me. So
no, with you.
Just kidding. All right.
But I have my funny story or funny, kind, sweet, whatever you want to call it. So
sure.
I'm ready whenever. You want to hear it now? Okay. So I remember this was mostly just a really kind thing, but we had been in San Francisco for a few months and my birthday came up in December and I was trying to figure out what to do for my birthday. But I was talking to you and you came up to me and you were like, you know, I do a thing. I make people birthday cakes for their birthday. And I was like, oh, that sounds so nice. And you were like, I make a cake, but it's something that you loved in your childhood, like something from your childhood that you really enjoyed having that birthday cake. So I thought that was just such a kind, sweet thing. That was like one of the kindest things that anyone's ever done for me. It was like, aww. Not only am I going to make you this cake, it's going to be meaningful and you get to pick, right? Yeah. So here comes the funny part. So I'm like, all right, my favorite childhood birthday cake was a coffee cake, kind of a classic coffee cake with the crumble on top, you know? And you were like, okay, yeah, that sounds doable. And I was like, oh, wait. Not just a coffee cake. You cut it in half and you stuff it with vanilla pudding.
Yes, I do remember this. Yeah.
So you were like, all right. Then I felt sort of bad because in retrospect, I was like, oh, I gave her kind of a difficult one. Because then you were like, I tried. I had to cut the cake in half and it was really hard and it was crumbling. But anyway, I was just so moved that somebody would do that for me. And that was the cake that my mom used to make me. And I was impressed.
I'm sorry I butchered it.
No, you didn't. You really didn't. I mean, it was delicious. It doesn't really matter.
Okay, so what Carla is referring to is, I guess I never called it this before, so it's a new thing now, but it's the patty cake service.
No, it's called patty cakes. I knew that. Did I not mention that?
No, you did. But I guess like maybe sometimes I'm like a little too aggressive about doing this for people.
No.
But I'm like, it's someone's birthday, tell me what cake you want me to make. And so like the patty cake being like, I'm the patty and then I make the cake. So it's not like I have my own patty cake. Over the years, I've made so many different cakes and I love the challenge and I love baking, you know, so it's like the perfect opportunity to get like a challenge like your cake was. And it's funny to think about because back in those days, I didn't even have a stand mixer. I had just such limited equipment. Yeah. That it's like funny for me to think that I attempted a cake, you know, of that difficulty with what I had. So I'm sure it was like a disaster. Like it looked horrible, but it probably tasted good. So.
I don't know. I was very excited about it and just very moved that somebody would do that for me.
Oh, thanks. I still do that. So for anyone who's wherever I am and I can make a cake for you, let me know when your birthday is and you can have a free cake.
Request it. Get in early.
Are you ready for some Spitfire questions?
I am.
Okay.
I hope so.
Mozart or Beethoven?
Oh, Mozart. He wrote something for harp at least.
Shostakovich or Prokofiev?
Prokofiev, for sure. Romeo and Juliet. That's my jam.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
I love it.
Netflix or video games?
Oh, Netflix, definitely. I am the person in video games, you'll see the little guy just running repeatedly into the wall and everyone's like, who is that? And I'm like, it's me. I don't know what I'm doing. That's me in video games. So I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, yeah. Basil or cilantro?
That's a really hard one. I guess if I had to pick one, probably basil.
Harry Potter, Star Wars, or Lord of the Rings?
Can I say none?
Sure.
I'm really not too much of a sci-fi person, but I guess when it comes to fantasy world, Harry Potter, I did read most of them, but I can't tell you that I read them all.
That's all right. Symphony or chamber music?
Oh, that's really tough. I guess I'll say chamber music because that's what I do most of. Even though I love playing in symphonies and would love to do that eventually. Chamber music is just such an intimate medium and it's the music of friends, really. It's so special. So I think I have to say chamber music.
Oh, it's so sweet. That like melted my heart when you said that.
I mean, it's just true. You get to know someone so well when you play chamber music with them.
That's
it's
true.
Such a special experience.
I'm getting the warm and fuzzies. I'm like not joking. I'm like, oh, that's why I do what I do too. Anyway, coffee or tea?
Oh, coffee, definitely.
Yeah,
Although I like both a lot, but coffee is, pretty addicted at this point. Every morning.
Favorite practice room? That's probably more challenging as a harpist, right?
Yeah, I mean, I like my practice room right now. Our little studio faces right onto our street, which is sort of an alley. Doesn't get a whole lot of foot traffic, but it's kind of fun to look out and see people pass by. And I would say I'm not picky about those things. It's wherever I am currently practicing, as long as it's decent, I'm pretty happy. I know the conservatory had some beautiful rooms. The harp studio didn't have a window, but I still really enjoyed it. I spent so much time there. Yeah. I feel like I made so much progress there. That might be my favorite practice room, actually. I just felt myself grow so much in that room.
Aww.
That sounds weird, but
no.
Yeah, the person
like
that
those
first
four
went
walls
into that room. Oh my gosh, so well. Those four walls were the first time I experienced an earthquake. So yeah, playing a harp and seeing the harp across the room start to wobble. That was my first earthquake experience. And yeah, I just felt like I was a different person when I first walked into that practice room than when I graduated from the conservatory and came out of the practice room. Mm-hmm. So I would say that's probably my favorite.
Most inspired musical hero of any genre?
Madonna. She's ageless, timeless, and she really does control her own image. So I always thought she was a very cool musician and feminist figure because people can say a lot about her videos, but really she is always in control. And you can read a lot about that too. I remember learning about it.
That's awesome.
Even in freshman musicology.
I don't know why I didn't expect that answer, but that makes so much sense.
Yeah, Beyonce is pretty similar in that way actually too. Beyonce is doing really cool things. She's really into art history. It's very cool to see what they come up with. And I also do love popular music. It's a nice break from what we do.
Most transformative performance experience?
Oh, definitely playing alongside my former teacher, Doug Ryeth in the San Francisco Symphony, playing a film score with him, with the orchestra. I think I did a concert where we did Vertigo, the Hitchcock film. Oh, awesome. Playing that score to one of my favorite movies and just knowing it so well and playing with the symphony and playing next to my teacher and mentor. Definitely. That has to be the one.
Was it like one of those full circle moments?
Definitely. I would say it was because so many of my different passions came together. I mean, I love films. And so that was such a great experience for me. Obviously, I have a lot of respect for my teacher and mentor, and being able to play with him was such an incredible experience, and to observe what he does in rehearsal. And that was the best time of my whole life, probably.
Aww.
I mean, definitely.
Yeah, outside the wedding,
top
right?
5 moments. You're right. Yeah.
Next piece you'd like to learn?
Oh, probably something I had picked up but never really mastered fully. So it's called Scintillation. It's by a famous harpist, Carlos Salcedo. It's a standard piece in the repertoire, but it's so cool and involves a lot of glissing. Your fingers might be torn up. You have to work up to it.
Oh, really?
It's a lot of glisses, yes. And it's very rhythmic. Yeah, it's just something that I've been wanting to work on.
Just since you talked about glisses. So for cellists, we build up calluses on our fingers when we pitch, and also, of course, for thumb position, we have this giant callus on our left thumb. Do you build up? Is that what you're saying? Like you have to build up a callus to do all those glisses?
Yeah, I mean, you build calluses pretty naturally just in general from playing. But if you're going to do, I mean, that piece specifically has so many loud glisses. It's kind of going to be an exercise in stamina and building them slowly. I would probably practice them softly at first until I build up the right amount of callus for that. So yeah, it can just vary depending on what you're playing.
I see.
But you always have like a pretty much your main calluses, unless you've taken a lot of time off or something like that,
and
or been washing a lot of dishes or something. Yeah.
I did a little bit. I don't know if you knew this, but I did take a semester of harp in undergrad.
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
It's funny because I was a music major and our final was to perform in class in front of all the other students. Because of course we didn't meet the other students. I've performed most of my life and I get up there and I start sweating from my hands. Like I had that reaction, you know, because like, and the thing is like with cello, like I used to get that with cello maybe when I was in middle school to high school, early high school, but now like that never happens. But then when I was sitting there, I'm even thinking about this memory and my palms are sweating and I don't know why. It was the weirdest thing. And I was like, oh my God, it was even my fingertips were sweating. So like I couldn't,
you couldn't get a grip on anything.
I was worried I was going to miss a note because
oh, that's funny. I wish I didn't really know that.
Every time I can get a harp in my hands, it's fun to just kind of go like, oh yeah, I remember how to do it. Yeah, but I can't play anything. Like, but I definitely have a lot of respect for harpists.
Oh, that's sweet. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot going on. You have to be very coordinated, but it's just like other instruments. You just have to find what works. And I love the harp because you can accompany yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's very valuable.
Especially in times like these, right?
Yes.
Okay, Carla, you finished Spitfire questions.
Gosh, those are difficult.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Carla, I know we did already talk a little bit about harp. Can you tell me about your origin story in music? How did you discover harp and when did you decide it was your passion in life and where are you now?
So I discovered the harp, I guess I was about 7 or 8 years old. We were living in Switzerland because my father is from there. He's Swiss. And so I grew up in Switzerland for the first 10 years of my life or so. So we had neighbors there that she was a childhood friend of mine and she was a bit older than me. The neighbors had a daughter and she played the harp. And I really just wanted to do everything that she did for this time period in my life, right? So I went to her house and once I saw the instrument, I just fell in love. You know, it looks so graceful. It's hard not to. And then once I heard it, I really was like won over, you know, it's such rich resonance. Yeah, I was completely enamored by that and kept telling my parents that I don't even know if they were aware. They finally figured out that this girl, Noelle, that she played the harp and that's where I had seen it. So I was begging them to play and they were kind of like, well, I don't really know. Can't we pick something a little more manageable? It's like hard to find a harp. Also, we kept asking teachers if they would be ready to teach me. And I was so small that they were like, it doesn't seem like she can reach the bottom. So I actually waited. I think I waited for a year or at least a year and a half before I was able to take lessons. Yeah, then I started taking lessons in Switzerland. We moved back to New York in 1998, I want to say. There, I took a break for a little while, but became involved in music at my school. And I started playing the flute there, actually.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So yeah, it was my mom's way, I think, of steering me away from this very complicated instrument. So I actually liked the flute and I was good at it. And I started going to some private lessons for flute at a place called Greenwich House Music School, which is in New York, still exists. It's a wonderful little community school. And so the flute teacher there asked me one day, like, do you like playing the flute? And I said, oh yeah, I really like it, but I love the harp. I really love the harp. And so she was like, well, we have a harp teacher. It kind of happened that way because my mom had signed me up there for a scholarship. So this letter arrived in the mail that said, I've been accepted for a scholarship for harp lessons. So she was kind of surprised and thrown by that. So for a while, I played harp and flute throughout high school. I went to a performing arts high school and I did both there. But then it became pretty clear that it was just going to be harp. I just found it a big challenge. It seemed a lot harder, honestly. I mean, flute has its really hard parts too. The breathing, I could never get the breathing or the vibrato. And harp, you don't have to do any vibrato. So
that's true. Yeah.
I guess that part is easier. But yeah, I just found it such an immense challenge and I wanted to keep doing it.
So when did you know that you wanted to do it professionally?
I think my junior year of high school, about that summer. I think I did a few music programs, but the one that really stands out to me was the high school version of Tanglewood. So
BUTI.
BUTI, yeah. Mm-hmm. I did that after my junior and senior year of high school. And so, yeah, after that first year of doing that, I was kind of like, oh, wow, this is a thing. This can be a career. Yeah. I'm really into this.
So after you graduated from high school, where did you go to undergrad?
I went to the University of Michigan School of Music, Theater, and Dance for undergrad. And I think that was a perfect experience for me. I think I wasn't really ready for a conservatory environment at that point. And I wasn't at the level where, I don't know, I felt that I needed a lot of catching up with technique and things like that. So I was lucky to be able to do that at University of Michigan. And I loved it there. It was a really fun college experience. And so I ended up doing that. I ended up doing the Bachelor of Music degree, and I ended up doing also an English degree there. So I did a degree in English language and literature.
I didn't know that.
So yeah, a lot of people don't know that. I think I use my music degree far more, but but I'm glad I did it. It really enriched my life. And
that's funny
and
though.
I enjoyed being there.
Most people would say that a music degree is useless, but then obviously people joke also about English degree being useless.
You could really say I got the two most useless degrees, but I was very lucky. I was on a full merit scholarship, so I just took my time, and I really think I needed the 5th year for harp as well. Mm-hmm. I really think it helped me a lot. I was really enjoying working with the teacher I had there. She really got through to me. Joan Holland, she's a wonderful harpist and teacher. And I should also mention Lynn Aspinus. She was the one who brought me to University of Michigan. I owe her so much. She was a wonderful teacher as well.
So your high school teacher?
No, Lynn Aspinus was the first teacher at Michigan. She ended she left after the first 2 years that I was there, and we got a new teacher. So yeah, Lynn Aspinus, Joan Holland, those were my wonderful Michigan teachers. And then I do want to talk about my high school teacher too. Her name was Dulcie Barlow, and she studied with Carlos Salcedo, the piece that I mentioned earlier that I want to play. She studied with one of the most famous harpists of the 20th century. So that was so cool to have the experience to study with her, because she really knew so much about the Salcedo method. But anyway, she was just the kindest person. She had such a sweet and patient way about her. And I was probably like just the worst student at that point, the worst kind of harp student. I never practiced. I didn't do anything I was supposed to, but she just stuck with me and taught me and was so patient and just really taught me about the importance of just being kind. She was just so kind.
Aww.
So yeah, I really, really miss her. She was about 80 years old, and she was hauling her harp around to play in little
that's gonna be you
community operas, and I hope so. Like, she was incredible.
Anyway, so we were...
Oh, yes. So I went to University of Michigan. And then after graduating, I had a master class at my time at Michigan with Doug Ryeth, who was the professor at San Francisco Conservatory. And I really kind of knew I want to study with him. And so I applied to a few other master's programs, but I already knew that I wanted to go to San Francisco. I was San Francisco bound, basically. I really wanted to go. That's what I did for my master's.
And then we met. Yay.
And then we met. Yay. And that was really just one of the best times of my life as well.
Oh my gosh. I think
master's it went too fast. It really went
did.
Too fast.
Well, I guess I had 4 years there, but yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But you were there. I was
there. I stayed on living in San Francisco after, but it just wasn't the same. Being in school and having so much time to focus on what you're doing. And I don't know, master's is so different from undergrad. You don't have all the classes that you have to take. I don't know, you just are so free to really spend a lot of time practicing and playing. And yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so then, because I'm trying to remember it based on my timeline, because you and Juan, you got married in 2016. So you stayed in San Francisco, but Juan was going to move to Arizona, right? To do a DMA.
Well, no, we both stayed in San Francisco after we graduated. We were both there for a few years. I was there 5 years total. So
Okay.
I spent 2 years of master's there and then 3 years just living in the city, gigging, doing different things, playing with different ensembles and doing my own thing, which I guess I'll talk about later with the film stuff. But so yeah, then we got married and we were still living in San Francisco. And then Juan decided that he really wanted to go back to school for a doctorate of music degree. And that's when he applied to the University of Arizona. And then we ended up moving there in, I guess it was also in 2016.
So now you're in Arizona, you've been living here, and you've just been a freelance harpist. Do you want to talk about what it's been like, or any upcoming things that programs that you're part of? Mm-hmm.
So when we first moved, it was hard. I had never been in a place, I was very connected in San Francisco because of the conservatory and having a lot of contacts there. And my transition from school to freelancer in San Francisco seemed very seamless. So moving to Tucson, it was difficult because I didn't really know anybody and I wasn't at school, even though Juan was. So obviously I made a lot of contacts through him, but I really had no job prospects for what I was going to do. So I did freak out about it for a while and I ran around trying to do things and get things started. And honestly, it was really when I just said, you know what, just forget it for a second. I'm just going to relax and enjoy my life and play my harp. At that point, all these different things fell in my lap, totally by accident. I ended up sitting next to somebody by chance at a luncheon that Juan was playing at. And that's how I got asked to be part of the healing art program. So that was super lucky. And I had done a little bit of playing in hospitals before in San Francisco. So I kind of had that experience. And so that's something I really, really enjoy because you're making people feel better, hopefully. And people just come up and talk to you. They appreciate you so much. I mean, the harp has a lot of healing qualities to it, right? It is known to lower your heart rate when you're stressed and anxious. It does that. So yeah, people just really appreciate you a lot and they come and tell you all about it, which is just like the dream job.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I ended up doing that and I don't do these things anymore. But when I was first in Tucson, I had about 3 standing engagements that I would play at every week. So I played at a Spanish tapas restaurant.
Oh, fun.
Every week, every Tuesday, because I knew one of the waiters there and he got me the job. And then I played at a Peruvian restaurant every weekend. And then I think every other week I would also go to play at this resort at their like dusk happy hour outside. So that's what I started doing in Tucson. And then I stopped doing the restaurant jobs just because they were very exhausting. And I was really starting to feel that effect on my body. I had some problems with my wrist and my back because basically between that and the hospital, there were days that I was moving my harp every maybe 5 or 6 days of the week. And that's a lot of hauling. And sometimes I was going straight from one gig to the next. So I would go to the resort, straight from there to the restaurant. And by the time you count all that up, that's moving a harp in and out of your car 6 times.
Yeah.
By myself, unless, when I got home, Juan would help me.
Right.
So yeah, I sort of stopped doing that and was doing just the hospital and my teaching job at Tucson Youth Music Center. That I had always done. I'm sorry, I'm going not in order with this.
No, it's fine.
So TYMC was something I had started doing close to when we got here. I went to see the school. Somebody had told me they needed a piano teacher there. So I was teaching people basic piano there. But I took a tour of the school and opened up this closet and there was a very small, dusty old harp sitting in there. And I was like, what is this? Can I teach on this? So I took it out and cleaned it up and was able to have my first harp student because of that harp. So that was
so
great.
Cool.
Yeah. So I founded that. They never had a harp program before. So I decided to just make one. So I had just one student for a while and then someone donated another harp. So now I've got 2. I mean, when we were in person, we were doing little harp ensemble as well, little harp duet. And I teach them privately every week and I really enjoy it.
That's so cute.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. So yeah, that's basically what I've done in Tucson. And then Chamberhood was a more recent project. That was something that grew out of Juan being very involved with Arizona Friends of Chamber Music. He coaches for a program called Tucson Adult Chamber Players, which is for amateur adults that just want to maybe they played when they were young. They want to get back into some music and they get paired up with other people in the area to play chamber music together. So he coached for that program. And then he and our friend Emily Chow, who's a wonderful violinist from the Tucson Symphony, the three of us decided to create Chamberhood. Chamberhood is exactly what it sounds like, chamber music for the neighborhood. And it's really supposed to target diverse locations, wanting to introduce everyone to chamber music, wanting to introduce people who maybe haven't heard chamber music before, and just really believing in the fact that it's for everyone. I was big on pushing us to do a concert at a women's homeless shelter because I just think, why not? They should have that experience as well. So we did that. And then we did also a concert for the young urban professional crowd at a bar. It really has the effect that you want it to. I remember there was one guy at that concert who was mesmerized. He kept telling me that he was supposed to leave that bar an hour ago, but he just couldn't bring himself to do it. And he was just glued to it. That's the kind of reaction you want, right?
Yeah.
And he had never heard any sort of chamber music before. And so he just kept texting his friend and was like, I'm going to be late because he could not bring himself to leave the concert. Yeah. So that kind of thing, right? So I like that. I think it's a really different experience than when you're playing for a chamber music loving crowd. They already love it. They're already sold on it.
It's like they already know the lyrics to it almost or something.
Exactly. Yeah. And then we also did a kids concert, which was really cool. We paired famous children's literature, basically set it to music using some Tucson local composers. They did that, and that was a commission for them. And
which children's books?
Oh, for example, we did Where the Wild Things Are was one of them. So that's a classic by Maurice Sendak. And then we also did a few poems by Shel Silverstein. And lastly, one of our composers' wives wrote a really sweet story about an elephant, and that is called Ellie's Red String. Aww. So those were the three things that we did. Yeah, it was a really fun experience.
With COVID and everything, obviously for the medical center, that probably is challenging for you to be able to help your patients. And
yes. So for the medical center, we've been so lucky to be offered the option to play from home. So we record things at home and send them in, and they've created a 24-hour hospital music channel.
Oh, very cool.
Which is really
cool.
Nice. Yeah. I wish a little bit that it could be live. I really miss the patient interaction. I would love for the patient to be able to pick out what they would like to hear, but I don't know, maybe that's on the horizon, or hopefully this will all be over soon, because I really do miss going to play at the hospital because it's such a special thing. I love that job. I really am lucky to say that everything I do, I love doing. So I feel super lucky about that.
Yeah. And then with teaching, of course, that's probably virtual.
Yes.
And then
virtual. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then the Chamberhood, you can still go out and do those concerts, right? I'm assuming outdoors, or I've been doing outdoor concerts up until now,
we haven't really done it. Arizona Friends of Chamber Music put everything online for their upcoming season. So Chamberhood, I don't know, we've kind of been on hold, but that's probably mostly due to the fact that our next project is a pretty big one. And that's actually going to be our first film project that I've done with Chamberhood. I've done a lot of film and music projects, but it's sort of a musical tapestry. So 3 different composers are going to be scoring 3 different parts of the same film. So basically we have a silent film and it goes through 3 composers' scores throughout the film.
That's cool.
Yeah, which should be really fun. And we're doing that with Buster Keaton's Sherlock Holmes Jr. I don't know if you ever saw that film.
Okay. No, but yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm familiar with
It's great because that's a perfect choice for a free and also child-friendly, family-friendly concert. It's really for everyone, and it's something lighthearted. The only thing that's too bad is that obviously this concert experience was designed pre-COVID, so it's supposed to take place in a movie theater, which may be tricky. We might have to postpone if there's really limited capacity.
Are there any other upcoming projects that I forgot to talk about?
Well, Juan and I we've been doing a lot of duo stuff since we are, always together at home. It's been easy to do that. So we do have a little concert coming up at the Benderly Kendall Opera House in Patagonia. So they're going to be doing a virtual live streamed concert from there, but that's coming up in December.
Do you know what date?
Yeah, December 6th.
Sounds good. Yeah, we'll look forward to that for sure.
Yay. Okay.
We'll publish it on all of our social media. And
awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Is this a good time to take a break?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I need some water.
All right, we'll be right back. welcome back from the break. So before the break, I just filled up some of my tea because for me, I consider this early morning, but but because you live in Arizona, you actually are 2 hours ahead of me. So thank you for waking up.
I'm behind you.
Oh, that's right. That's what I meant to say.
Fine. No, it's all right. I got up, I did my workout. I feel good.
Wow. Geez.
I've been trying to do that. It makes me feel really happy to get up and move my body right away.
Yeah. I've also started to do that too, although this morning was not super successful. I vacuumed though. But...
Oh, well, if you know your way around a vacuum, that's a good skill to have, and it's a workout.
Sure. I don't know. Let's just say that. Okay. Anyway, so historic art house movie theaters. I remember you working at the Clay Theater in San Francisco. Those were some of my fond memories of just being like, oh, I know Carla at the ticket line or ticket,
yeah.
Because I went there to see The Room with my friend Evo, the one where you like throw spoons at the screen. And...
Oh yeah, it's a cult favorite for sure. It's a cult, the movie that's so bad it's good.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's only good if you're doing all that kind of rioting stuff at the movie.
Yeah.
Like it's not good to watch the movie on its own, so.
Yeah, actually, I don't know if you've ever seen The Disaster Artist.
I have. I recently, yeah.
Oh my gosh, I was laughing so hard watching that. All about the making of The Room. It's really funny. But yeah, art house movie theaters. I've been, I guess, an art house or a historic cinema enthusiast for a while now. There's something about, I always worked in them as a side job, and that started when I was in Michigan. I needed a summer job one summer, and I started working at the Michigan Theater, which is a historic art house theater from 1928.
Wow.
And it was so cool. It was so much more inspiring than my other part-time retail job, which I found really dull and taxing. Working at the Michigan Theater was just so much fun. I mean, there's just so much history and kind of mystery in an old theater like that is just really fun to be around. Plus the staff are, they usually know a lot about film, and they're the most interesting people. So I remember just having such a great time working there, talking about films, watching films, being able to go see films for free. I mean, free movies and popcorn, that's a pretty good job perk.
That's right. I think you also used to always give us free popcorn too.
Oh yeah, I used to do that all the time. I used to, as a poor college student, I was always broke. When you want to be generous, it's hard when you can't be. So that was my way of being generous, right? So I would take my friends on these dates that they were paid for by my blood, sweat, and tears, I guess. Yeah. Not by money. So we would just go to the movies all the time. Yeah, so it started working at the Michigan Theater, which is really beautiful and has a theater, the original, restored theater organ in it. And that's something that the Castro Theater also has that in San Francisco. Hearing an organ before a show is just, I don't know, it doesn't get more old-timey than that. And I think it's just so special. And I remember the Michigan Theater organist being quite the character, and he would be playing, and there's a part where, he'd have to stop eventually for the movie to start. So he timed it just perfectly so that he would start lowering himself down. The organ would actually lower it down.
Whoa.
Maybe blocking part of the screen. I'm not sure, but you could lower it down into the pit. So he would start lowering himself as he was finishing the song, and was just timing himself perfectly. And he would even turn around and give a little wave.
That's so cute.
It was really cute. And so, seeing an organ in a theater was something I always really enjoyed. So when I got to San Francisco, I had a side job at the conservatory, but I really also needed something else to make it work because, as you know, rent in San Francisco is so expensive. So I ended up living kind of at the bottom of the Fillmore before it kind of goes up the hill. I started wandering up Fillmore Street one day, and I came across the Clay Theater, and I thought, oh, this looks perfect. This is kind of like an art house, sort of the same vibe, really old. The Clay is actually even older than any theater I've ever worked at. It's 113 years old.
Wow.
If you can imagine that. Yeah. So I put in an application for the Clay Theater and then also for the Opera Plaza Theater, because both of those were operated by Landmark Theaters at the time. And it was a very cool theater. It was really cute and retro. It had these like chrome mirrored ceilings. I ended up working mostly at the Clay, a little bit at the Opera Plaza as well. But yeah, I enjoyed working at the Clay so much. It was so fun. We had, like you mentioned, we had the room. I can't remember the days, but it was every 2 weeks or so, or every month. Every month, I
at
think.
least every month.
At least every month.
Evo would know these.
Yeah.
You went like all the time. Yeah.
Right. I didn't work those really late shifts that much, but I did sometimes. We also had Rocky Horror Show, which was really fun.
Yeah.
Oh, that was fun. They had a live cast that was called the Body Cast, spelled BAWDY. I worked at the Clay Theater for about 3 years. Then I moved out. When I moved in with Juan, we moved to the outer Richmond. So we were living on Balboa, really close to the beach. And I thought, oh gosh, it's really hard to get up to the Clay, to go all the way downtown to go to work. It's taking up a lot of my time. So I thought, where else could I work over here? And I started looking for theaters, and lo and behold, right on Balboa Street, I found the Balboa Theater when I was exploring my new neighborhood. And so I started working there instead. And I loved it so much. That really was such a great experience, because that theater was privately owned and the owner was so kind. He really gave me free rein to do a lot of concerts there and a lot of shows that otherwise would have been very hard for me to have the budget to put on, right? That's where I started doing kind of some music and film stuff. I guess the first idea came out of, I had played those film scores with the symphony when we did Vertigo and compilation of Hitchcock clips from his movies. And I had enjoyed that so much. And at the time I was talking to, well, you know, Jean-Michel's wife, Dana Fontenot. She's a music career counselor, also a speaker. She does a lot of different things. I was taking some classes with her at the time, and she told me, you know, your face really lit up when you were talking about playing music for films. And I thought, oh, she's really right about that. And so she kind of brought that out in me. So I thought, what can I do? You know, obviously playing with the symphony, that was such an amazing experience. But I thought, what can I do to do that on my own? Like to go out and try to make a concert, a similar idea. So that was part of it. And then also going to the Castros Theater to see, they have a silent film festival every year. And Juan happened to know somebody that was playing in the Berkeley Silent Film Orchestra. And they were playing for a show at the Castro that was an accompaniment to the movie Varieté, which is a silent film from 1925. It's kind of about retired trapeze artists and just in general circus life. So I went to see that film to see the live accompaniment, and it was just so inspiring. It was kind of like what our latest Chamberhood project is, but it was this musical tapestry of, I want to say like at least 7 or 8 different composers going throughout the film. And it was conducted, and it was such a special show. And that's when I really thought, oh, I really want to do something like this. So I started organizing shows at the Balboa, and I commissioned composers to write music for these little short silent films that I had picked out. They were all different. They didn't really have a theme, but they were all like interesting little bits and pieces of silent film. So we did that show, and it ended up being a huge success. Like it was sold out, and it was so much fun to do, but it was a lot of work. But I enjoyed it so much. And so it's definitely been something that I've repeated a lot and that I gravitate towards. And yeah, we had like great composers. I listed a lot of people that I obviously knew from the conservatory. And that first set of composers was so nice and patient with me, because I really knew nothing about what goes into a project like that. So you need a conductor, you need a click track. If you have things that are happening in the film that need to be coordinated with the music, you know, It's really hard. So yeah, all of that was such an adventure to figure out, and doing it at the Balboa, like it couldn't have been more special, because it was my place where I went to work. It's just such a fun place to be. Like I said, there's so much history there. You're always hoping to find something in a theater that's old. You're always hoping to dig into some old closets and find something. Like, I don't know that we ever found anything too special, but I remember my good friend there finding a roll of tickets that was really old. It was like, where do these tickets come from, right? And they were, I don't know from when they were, but we found that. And I think she found some pamphlets about Cinderella, the Disney movie.
Oh,
Which,
really?
if you think about it, that is quite old. I mean, it's something about that. And it's just, you just never know what you're going to find. So they're fun places to be.
I mean, to me, it seems like there's like three components that make, if we're going to quote Dana again, light up when it comes to bringing music together. By the way, Dana Fontenot's, her company is called The Wholehearted Musician. You can go to her website or just type in at Google. I think we've talked about it, I believe, on Natalie's episode in the past. So Dana's a great resource for anybody.
Yeah.
Just to plug her yet again.
Definitely. No, she was very, I have her to thank for actually doing something, doing,
well, recognizing
this was
something
after school.
your...
This was after school was over, right? And I wasn't very, I mean, I guess I was motivated. I was doing auditions. I was doing all the things that you are supposed to do, right? In quotes, supposed to do after school. And I was just in a frustrated time. And yeah, I have her to thank for seeing that was really making me light up. Yeah. And it was great. I started this series. It was called New Music for Old Films. And so we did that first concert, and I decided it was so much fun and it was so rewarding. I wanted to do it again. So we did another one shortly after. It really was like a really quick turnaround. And that was because I knew we were moving here. So we did a very quick turnaround and did another concert, which was similar, but it was called Méliès's Madness. So all the silent films were by the Méliès brothers and Georges Méliès. The famous ones were on there, of course, the Voyage dans la Lune, the moon voyage, and then there were others as well. And then the second component of that concert was actually a really cool collaboration with a filmmaker that I knew. That's another thing about, well, I didn't meet this one working in theaters, but when you work in theaters, you do meet a lot of filmmakers. But this person was my neighbor. He's a great filmmaker called Andrés Gallego. He was going to the San Francisco State University School of Cinematic Arts. And so we decided to collaborate. He said, I need music for my film. I have the music already. Can you play it? So we scored it for harp and string quartet, I believe. And we did a recording. And then we also did it live in the concert. So we had some new music for new films as well. So yeah, those experiences were really fun. And which is part of the reason why I'm trying to do them again. Now we're going to do something with Chamberhood, but
sorry if I'm going to go back to what I was...
No, it's okay. I'm going to be going back and forth too. No, I have a lot of things to say about it.
Well, I first said there's like about 3 components that make you light up, but I'm actually thinking there's about 4 now. And that's music, film, sushi. No, just kidding.
Sushi does make me light up.
Not sushi, but okay. Music, film, history, or just being in a historic
space.
She wants to play so bad. I'm not now, Sushi. Okay. Yeah, playing in a historic space and also bringing people together, the community part of it.
Yes.
I think if all 4 of those things are in one nutshell, as they say, I think that's what you're constantly in search for in your performances.
Yeah, that's a very, that's...
So why is it important for music and film to be meshed together in your view? Maybe that's not a good word, but I
don't know if that it's important. I just think it's entertaining.
So I guess maybe let me rephrase the question. What makes the fusion of the visual to the aural more entertaining than just the aural or just the visual?
Obviously, you have a lot of studies around how music affects film, right? So I don't know if you've ever done this, but something really interesting to do. Here it comes. This is again from my freshman musicology class. That was a really good class. Whoever taught that class, I'm trying to remember. I think it was Mark Clegg. Anyway, good job, because I remember all these things from it. When you take the music away from the action in a film, it's an extremely different experience. So this was demonstrated to me, and you should do this. This is really funny, with a scene from Toy Story. If you play the beginning, towards the beginning of the first film, there's a scene where this little toy soldier, I don't know, something's happened to him and he gets injured and he's dragging along and he's like, go without me. And the music in it makes it really emotional and you feel for him and you're like, oh, this is so sad. I mean, obviously it's also a children's movie, so you're taking it with a grain of salt, but like you're watching it with the music and you think nothing of it. Turn the music off and watch the same thing, and it's hilarious. It's like completely melodramatic. Here you are like being so sad about something that is like, it's not real, right? It's a toy soldier.
Yeah.
It's kind of ridiculous, right? So
basically it humanized that.
Totally. It humanized that moment. It can really manipulate the action. But, you know, for silent film, a lot of the time, originally, it was improvised. So that's interesting too, because you're never going to get that original score back, right?
Yeah, I believe Shostakovich was even
Oh, really?
silent film pianist and would
Oh, that's
improvise.
cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know
But
that.
my question actually is not so much how much music adds to the
Oh, you can
film.
scrap that whole thing too if you
No,
want.
no, it's interesting. No, but I'm actually more curious from the opposite direction. What does film add to music?
Oh, well, that's hard to say. I don't know. I think it's
Because
just
I think oftentimes we do listen to soundtracks without the movie. Let's say, for example, when I was a kid, I was obsessed with Pirates of the Caribbean and I loved the soundtrack. I think, that's like still something that we often arrange and perform for children concerts and whatnot. And so I used to listen to the soundtrack all the time. Every time I did, I also had the image of the movie in my head.
Right.
I never listened to the music without ever watching the film. So that's where it's not just so much how much the music helps the film. The film also brings out a visual.
Obviously. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Silent films especially are just so moving to me. I mean, I remember my first real memory of a silent film, I guess that wasn't like a comedy, was that when we were living in Switzerland when I was a child, we had something that was like a movie club almost. It's funny to talk about this now because you think about it now and it just like sounds like a liability lawsuit waiting to happen. But what it was like, you bring your kids to this movie theater, you leave them there to watch a movie at the film club, and like you come get them later, right? So we would get little pamphlets in the mail about what the movie was going to be, and you could read about it. And it was always silent films. It was very educational. So my parents would bring me to these events, and my brother too. And I remember going and seeing the movie Metropolis, the Fritz Lang silent film. It's very famous. It's a German expressionist science fiction drama, and it's kind of about this futuristic urban dystopia where this saintly female character called Maria and the rich son of the city master are trying to figure out how to close the wealth gap, basically.
Well, we could use some help right now.
Right, exactly. No, actually, it's very relevant to these times. I think the last intertitle of the film is something that's so meaningful. It's the mediator between the head and the hands must be the heart. I mean, how true is that for this moment in time? Obviously that, I probably missed that as a kid, but I remember going to see that movie and being so terrified because the saintly woman figure eventually gets somebody makes a robot of her to corrupt everything. And that was the scariest thing I ever saw. And I didn't know that a silent film could be scary, basically. I thought, oh, this is old. This is kind of like whatever. I don't know. This is a black and white movie. I just remember that experience really vividly. And I just think silent films are such an important art form and such a moving art form. Why not pair them with music? Why not bring those things together, bring chamber music into it and bring new music into it also, because everyone's interpretation of that is totally different.
You spoke a little bit about it with the ticket stubs and finding the Cinderella pamphlet, but is there something in particular about the way that it's set in those old movie theaters that is different than just going to like your Edward cinemas or something? Or
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think it's really important for concerts like this to take place in a historically relevant place, I guess, in historically relevant theater. I have never tried to go do this at an AMC or anything like that. Nothing against those theaters because they're also fun. But I just think that something about silent film, like if you can have a theater that actually has an organ and do it there, like how cool is that? And I know there's definitely theaters that have done shows where the organist will actually do a score and play the whole score for a silent film.
Cool.
So yeah, that's really cool if you can ever see something like that. I just think something about seeing the Art Deco murals and seats. Sometimes theaters have the original seats, or seeing the lobby.
It's like a time capsule for you to just be there and experience.
A time capsule. The Michigan Theater was so beautiful. I remember that. They really were palaces back in the day. They were just, I think the arts should be valued, right? And being in a place like that, it really respects film history and just adds so much to the experience, I think.
When you tie all these things together and then you bring in the community aspect, I know I said time capsule, but you're actually creating more of an entire experience. And that's what I can speak from the music side of it, not as a filmmaker, but from a musician side of it, we're always trying to tell a story. We're always trying to create the experience. That's why the live concert going experience is an experience. It's not a recording to something. So with you, film is typically pre-recorded, put to the film. But if you're actually bringing that third dimension out with live performance, even though it's trickier with a conductor or organizing musicians to play it on time with the score, and then putting it in the setting of a historic nature of like, this is maybe what it was like back in the day, and then everyone having that shared experience. It's like a holistic way of experiencing the message of the film, the message of the music, and even the architectural significance of the art theater.
Right. Yeah. And I also think now that you're saying all this, it's just jogging my memory. You know, in a theater, you can have popcorn, right?
Yeah.
It's a little more casual. You can eat your popcorn and have your snacks or whatever. You can't do that in a chamber music concert. I mean,
yet.
Right. But that's not really a thing. And also, you know, for films, you have so much variety. You can have something really funny and something really sad. I remember for one of the silent film concerts I had, it was more like footage rather than a full film, but it was footage of children in the surf. And it was from 1904. And it had a panorama of Ocean Beach and Cliff House. And so basically we're sitting in this theater, which is about 2 blocks away from where this footage was taken in 1904. And there was some beautiful like harp and string quartet ethereal music set to this footage, and people were so moved. People told me they were moved to tears by that. I didn't really expect that. And then also there's the funny part of it, right? When you see a Buster Keaton movie or a Charlie Chaplin movie in a collective group, you almost laugh more because there's always one person laughing really loudly, and it's infectious, right?
Well, that's scientifically proven, I believe, actually.
Exactly. Right. So you can have a more casual experience at a quote unquote concert like this because it's a concert, but it's more than that. Like, so that is also really fun for performers too, because as much as you have to try to stay on track and not lose your way, because it's very hard when somebody gets off and there's a click track, but it's so fun to experience that. People reacting to what's happening, right?
Yeah. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you wanted to mention?
Oh, I meant to talk about popcorn poppers, but that's not really important.
Oh, well, let's talk about popcorn poppers.
Well, you know how everyone's like, oh, movie theater popcorn tastes so good. Why is that? There's a reason. And it's because the kettle is...
Just kidding.
Well, the butter could be the reason, but the kettle is so seasoned from making so many batches of popcorn over and over and over again with salt. It's almost like a cast iron skillet type of effect, right?
Yeah.
That's why it's so good. And also fun fact, which I could never get over as working at theaters, that I always thought it was funny. It's more punny than funny. There's little buttons on the popper that tell you what to do or whatever you flick the switch. And there's something called the conditioner, and they always spell it Cornditioner.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
It's really cheesy.
Yeah.
Corny, you could say, but I think it's really funny.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, I kind of miss operating a popper. It's really fun.
Do you have any plans to work at a theater? Obviously after COVID and stuff. Or... Well,
no, not really. I mean, I loved it so much as a side job, but I guess in Tucson, I was able to make my living fully
as a musician.
Music. So, yeah. But, you know, that didn't stop me from being an avid supporter of theaters here. And I love the art house cinema that we have here. It's called the Loft Theater. And I'm really hoping to have our Chamberhood performance there. It's pretty cool.
The last little thing that I wanted to say, and it's just from a personal standpoint, I grew up in San Diego, and the symphony hall that the San Diego Symphony performs in is called the Copley Symphony Hall. And I remember my dad telling me as a kid that they converted that from an old Fox theater and they kept it like it was. I mean, they took down the screen and all these things, and it's an actual symphony hall. They did that in 1984. So up until then, it was an old time movie theater.
Yeah.
And so now it's a symphony hall.
Right.
And all the art deco is what you're talking about is still there. The curtains are still there. Yeah. And all the architecture. So it's real. I mean, that's where I performed as a kid with the youth symphony. That's where I soloed Dvorak Concerto First Movement as a high schooler there. And I've seen like Gil Shaham and the late Lynn Harrell and tons of acts perform there. And so I think very fondly of that kind of architecture and that style of hall. And anyway, I just wanted to do a shout out to Copley Symphony Hall in San Diego.
Yeah. I mean, it's great when those spaces places are repurposed for the arts, right? I
Yes,
mean, it would be
right.
upsetting if it weren't. What's really upsetting is that the Clay Theater recently closed.
No.
I know. And so I
Because of
basically, no, it was pre-COVID. It's hard to run a theater right now in a city like San Francisco. What the city would like to do is keep it because it's one of the oldest single screen theaters in the city. But obviously when you have a single screen, you're usually just showing one film at a time, right? So it's difficult to preserve those places. And the Michigan Theater, a lot went into preserving the Michigan Theater. A foundation was created for keeping it the way it was. But yeah, the sad part is that a lot of these theaters get repurposed for other things. I mean, I think the Michigan Theater, they were going to turn it into a food court.
No.
That just sounds horrifying to me. Thank God they didn't. But it happened with the Bridge Theater in San Francisco. That was a great one. And it's now, I believe, batting cages.
Oh, geez.
Most of the theaters that were operated by Landmark, which was the company I worked for, the Clay, are gone. I mean, the Lumiere was a cute little gem in the Tenderloin. That's gone. The Bridge Theater is gone. So yeah, it's sad. It's really sad to me to see them disappearing. And I would hope that they're valued enough to stick around. That's why I'm thankful for places like the Balboa and the Vogue Theater. That's the same owner as the Balboa Theater.
Listeners, try to support your local art theaters and musicians as well. But
you could support the Balboa now. They're doing streaming at that theater as well. The Loft is also doing that, I believe. The Loft Cinema in Tucson. The Balboa, I know, is doing pop-up popcorn sales.
Oh, that's fun.
So yeah, I mean, if I still lived there, I would do that. I would get my popcorn and then eat it at home and watch whatever movie I was going to watch anyway. So do support historic theaters. They're really important.
Thanks, Carla.
Yeah.
Can I ask you 2 final questions?
Sure.
Okay. What, in your opinion, is the most common misconception of classical musicians or the classical music world?
I would say people who haven't heard classical music before kind of think that they might not like that or that it might not move them. And I think that's a big misconception because I know that it will. I don't know. I just think it's easy to say that about something when you haven't tried it. Or
green eggs and ham, right?
Exactly.
Yep. But I think what's interesting about what you're saying too is that film is a great introduction to classical music because you're watching an action, but your ear is assigning the music to that action, right? And it's also, as we were talking about the Toy Story story, that there's a humanization that comes from adding music to film. It makes sense that you're saying, I will make you like it.
Right. And I mean, classical concerts, there is a lot of formality involved. And I think that's changing.
I really hope so.
Of course, people do think it's stuffy sometimes. And they might be right because it can be. And it can be sort of suffocating. Like, oh, I have to sit here very quietly for this whole thing. But yeah, there are other ways to explore classical music. I think it's exciting. It's really starting to happen now. I don't think that traditional concerts will necessarily go away. And I don't know that I think that they should. But definitely creating a space that's a little bit more open for people to wander in and see what it's about, I think is a positive thing. So at least doing films with classical music or with contemporary music, new music, I think is a great in between for somebody maybe curious about chamber music.
I think that response is actually a really good segue to my second question, which is, after all the impact that COVID has done to classical music, what do you think is something positive that will enhance and carry on in our profession?
I think there's so much. I mean, since COVID started, it's not that anybody stopped doing things. We just stopped doing them in person mostly, but people have become so creative and there's all these live streams to watch. And I don't know necessarily that there's more content than there was before, but it feels like it because I have felt myself becoming a lot more supportive because I might not be able to be at your concert in Minnesota, but I can stream it, right?
Yeah.
And that wasn't really such a thing before. I mean, people would do it sometimes, but streaming wasn't the main focus. Getting it out to everybody so that everyone can watch from afar wasn't the main focus. So I think that's actually really cool. And I've been really excited that I can support my friends and watch their concerts from afar. So it's so innovative.
Okay. Are there any platforms or websites for our listeners to learn more about you or any upcoming projects or even any of the organizations that you're a part of?
Yeah, you can check out Arizona Friends of Chamber Music. Juan and I have a concert up on that website. And we will have this upcoming concert in Patagonia. Check out Tucson Youth Music Center. I believe we're getting a new website for that soon. So if you know anyone who needs music instruction in Tucson, you can also look up the Healing Art program if you want to know more about that at Tucson Medical Center. I think that's it.
Great. And if you've enjoyed listening to this podcast, please subscribe and leave, hopefully, a positive review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps this podcast reach more people, and it makes me feel like there's something I'm doing well, I guess. I don't know.
You are doing it well for sure.
Thanks. Please also hit subscribe while you're at it, so then you don't have to keep searching for this podcast. You can also give feedback at our email, haydnmusicstand@gmail.com, if there's something you'd like to suggest, or just say hi. Also, I love to read the reviews left on Apple Podcasts, and I encourage more people to comment below and let me know how I'm doing. Sharing with your friends and family is a free way to support this podcast. And if you'd like, you may also visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/HaydnMusicStand, because all this editing and stuff takes a lot of time, and it's definitely something I enjoy doing, but So I appreciate all my current Patreon members. Thank you. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all at Haydn Music Stand, to access more content. And there's also a Spotify playlist available with all the pieces we discussed on the show. You can find the link in the description of each episode. Thank you, Carla, for taking your morning time with me and chatting about your love for art houses.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me, Patty. It was so much fun.
Yeah. And thanks for listening.
Sushi, say bye.
I'm sorry to interrupt, when you're saying that reminds me of people who put on Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon with The Wizard of Oz or something like that. Which does, if anyone has,
try that. I've never tried that.
It's really creepy. I think it's creepy. Well, it actually aligns pretty well, and I love Pink Floyd. I love that album so much. But so for me, it's really awesome. But I think there is actually a YouTube person, someone who uploaded that. Did it? Oh, yeah, because you're supposed to start the album right after the third roar, the third one or something like that. I don't know.
I don't know. We never had pets growing up, so
no fish.
I'm never used to them. I had a fish in college, but it died.
Like they do. That's all they do is they die.
It's like 10 years ago.
Okay. So
anyway.
Yeah.